Firstly, welcome all to Hitachi. This will be our fifth Finance Modernization Forum. I'm Owie Bowden. I'm the Commercial Director for our Digital Enterprise Practice in EMEA, which is really encompasses all things ERP and finance. So we've got a really exciting agenda for you today. We've got some great speakers. We're going to kick off with Hannah from Agri Group, who's going to talk to you a bit about some of the issues 2025 and what he's seeing in the market around AI and how this can have transfer and finance function. We've then got Paolo from Hitachi. He's going to talk to you about a practical example of how we've helped one of our clients with an AI overlay to enhance a legacy finance system. We then got Winnie from Oracle. Say hi, Winnie, who's going to talk about some of the latest features in the boxes with the embedded AI within the Oracle SaaS nation. So we're really trying to give you a bit of a flavour for different approaches, both how you can take on use AI as an overlay to address a specific problem, or you can look at a modern finance system which tackles a number of problems for a larger transformation. We're then going to have a break, and then the second half, which is really the essence of what this forum's all about. You're going to have some facilitated discussion with the group, where you can all ask questions to one another. We try and let others answer from their own experience. We'd love to hear about what you were doing in your finance functions, where you're seeing successes, where you're seeing challenges, and sort of learn and gain some insights together. And we're then going to close, and for those of you who'd like to join us, we're going to have some drinks and some networking after. So please stay on for a little longer and spend some more time with us. So before we jump in, I'm conscious there's lots of faces I know in the audience, some I don't know quite so well. So just a bit of background on who we are, because Hitachi is a very big organization. Lots of people know Hitachi for many, many different things. But we sit within the Hitachi digital business, specifically with Hitachi Digital Services. And essentially we bring a range of skills and expertise to help our customers transform digitally, address some of their challenges through modern digital technologies. We've got about 40,000 skilled engineers and IT experts globally, so that are wealth and capability across the group. And underpinning that is a real breadth of different capability and different technologies, different skills, and different service solutions that we offer to our customers. One of the areas which is most pertinent to the forum today, and the area that I look up, is our finance modernization practice. And just some examples here of the types of customers we work with to modernize their finance function, whether that's a full-scale ERP implementation, moving on to a standardized solution with a modern ERP system, but also taking a more tactical approach and going in and solving some point problems with some very specific technologies. And that's the example you're going to get from Paolo today. So, a bit about knowing us. We're now going to pass through to Herman from the Agri Group.
Hey everybody, hope you're all well. Just quick introduction. So my name is Herman Washerford. I head up our business services transformation team here in London. If you don't know Hackett, we're an Nasdaq company. We're famous for our benchmarking. A lot of organizations know us for our benchmarking across the support functions. We're also a company focusing on providing advisory membership programs, almost like a Gartner. But we also facilitate and help on the transformation side. In fact, 75 to 80% of our business is all about transformation, helping companies on that journey towards we call digital world class, which is our top quartile performance companies in the market. So that's Hackett. I've been with Hackett for about 8 years. Before that, I headed up finance transformation consulting and Sopracera for a couple of years. Before that, I was at the Big Four, a director in their transformation practice. So look forward to the conversation today. Right, so a couple of topics I'll cover. Firstly, we'll start with, from our perspective, some of the key business risks and what we are seeing, what our customers are telling us about what they're concerned about. We'll talk a little bit about finance workload, what's happening with workload and some of the pressures on the finance function, because that's important to think about as well. We'll talk about Gen AI, of course. Gen AI is on everybody's vocabulary these days. So we'll talk a little bit about that and what we're seeing in terms of opportunity. We'll give some more insights in terms of some of our recent studies that we've done on the topic. And we'll finish off by talking a little bit about finance in the age of our AI. How should we look at our service delivery models? How should we think about opportunities more broadly from a finance perspective? Good. All right. So let's get straight into business risks. So earlier this year, we did a study called our Key Issue Study. It is a study we've started November last year already, and we've engaged with all of our benchmarking customers, our advisory customers, to get their thoughts on risk. What do they see as some of the key risks that we are all facing across the board? Some of these are pretty simple to understand. Of course, from a geopolitical point of view, we know there's lots of political related risks out there today to consider. There's a lot of stuff going on in the US affecting, I think, all of us around the globe, which we need to obviously think about. There's obviously the economical side of things, trade wars, all of that will have a big impact in terms of how, it especially affects the finance function, because we need to be ready, we need to forecast, we need to understand, how some of these things will impact us. Then, of course, from a social point of view, salaries, inflation is playing a big role, for the finance function, putting a lot of pressure, on what we do and how we deliver, to our business. There's a lot of challenge in terms of the workforce, especially around global business services, your support functions in the back end, because there are some challenges when it comes to talent, especially if you start looking at, some of the offshoring capabilities that a lot of organizations would have. Technology, of course, technology is advancing very fast. There's a lot of fast-moving capabilities now popping up, especially around AI, which we'll talk a little bit about today, of course. And then, of course, environmental, the natural disaster risk, climate change, that is always going to be one of our key risks we need to think about as businesses. And then last but not least, data privacy regulations. These are all things that our customers were concerned about. So it's important to think about these risks, and because it will have an effect on how we operate, within our support functions. Then let's have a look at workload. So in our study this year, we also asked the question, what is happening with the finance workload out there today? And what's the expectation for finance functions in terms of that demand coming in for the finance services? So in the study, the finance workload did go up this year, 4.1% compared to last year. But the challenge is the finance staff, the FTEs, and the actual budgets have gone down. So we have a natural challenge here. We have a productivity challenge, because where are we going to fill the gap? How are we going to fill this 4.9% productivity gap that the finance function need to think about? You can see, to an extent, the finance function is addressing that through technology spend. There's an increase this year of 3.5%, in terms of that technology spend for the finance function. But it's still not going to be enough. There's still going to be more that you'll need to think about. What can I do with my process? What can I do with my data? What can I do with my delivery model in terms of how I deliver my services? So you have to think broader than just technology. And I think that's important to think about for the future. If we look at AI, a lot of organizations ask us this question: what do we expect will happen with AI in terms of the impact on productivity? So this is a slide we published a couple months ago that really gives a bit of a forecast in terms of our view of what will happen to the finance function from a productivity point of view by 2030. So you can see, as of now, there's only limited sort of use cases that's been reported. We do see a mild impact on 2025 from a productivity point of view, but the big move is happening 2026, 2027, 2028. You will notice that finance is actually slightly behind the SG&A functions. Sales, marketing, some of the other functions have been a little bit quicker on the trigger. They've already started implementing some of these capabilities. So finance lagging behind, and you'll see the biggest impact coming with productivity uplifts of above 10% for 2027 and 2028. So that's our thoughts in terms of the savings that you will see over the next few years. slightly higher than SG&A, 42%, compared to the 40% forecast for the whole of SG&A for companies. Right, so let's have a look at, what do we mean by AI? What does this technology landscape look like today? Now, of course, on the left, you can see the normal ones we've always talked about. ERP, we talked about cloud-based ERP, we talked about legacy-based ERP, best-of-breed applications. Service management applications are very important, especially if you've got a GBS function or a global business services or a shared service center that runs your services. And we need digital enablement tools for our workforce. So these things we've seen for a number of years. What's really now increasing a lot is this middle bucket here: generative AI, predictive AI, agentic AI, conversational assistance. These are all newer things now that are coming to the fore that's going to have an impact on what we do from a finance function perspective. On the right-hand side, you can see tools like data capturing tools, reporting tools, analytical tools, RPA, those sort of things. That's been around for a little while now. So I do think in the middle, that's where the biggest impact's going to be over the next coming years. Right, so let's have a look at value realized from Gen AI. One of the questions we asked in our key issue study this year to all our GBS organizations out there was, where does the value come from? What do you believe will be, from a value perspective, important, for your organization? What value are you seeing in your own organizations? And you can see we asked the general peer company, which is the median sort of companies in the Hacker database. But we also asked this question to the digital world-class customers. These are organizations like Kimberly-Clark, Vodafone, BHP, etc. They also participated in the study, so we could see the difference in how they answer some of these questions. And you can see the value, especially on the digital world-class side, is definitely much broader. It's not just about productivity anymore. It is about the experience that we create. It's about quality. So quality is very much part of it. And it's also about things like cost, driving, reductions in FTE, etc. So I think it's important to think about that Gen AI is not just a productivity thing. It is also something you need to consider from a quality perspective, and also that experience you're creating within the business. So what's happening with technology? If I quickly run through, where we're at in terms of usage. So in this slide, and again, by the way, we'll share these slides. In this slide, we are looking at the current adoption of technologies, which you can see on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, you can see whether or not it is meeting the expectations or if it's falling behind, expectations. Unfortunately, for Gen AI, you can see all the AI really, there's still quite a lot of failures. There's quite a few of these organizations out there that feels that it's falling short of the expectation. So I think that is something to look out for. It's important to think about why they're falling short. What are some of the lessons learned? What can we learn from these organizations that have tried this and that have actually failed as well? So it's important to think about failures, and how can we learn from these organizations. But what's encouraging is that you can see a broad range across all of the AIs now. A lot of organizations are piloting, so a lot of pilots going on. There's still, when you look at the broad-based adoption, it's still quite low, right? So very low in some cases. And I think that's important to think about. Gen AI, only for peer group, about 5% of companies are now focusing on broad-based sort of adoption. So that tells me this is still an early game. There's still a lot to do when it comes to some of these solutions out there in the market. There's still lots of concerns. We asked the question, what is the concerns out there, from an AI perspective? And these are just some of the examples that were quoted. And I'll point out a couple. I won't go through all of this now. But, if I look at sort of the top 3 or 4, the first one is very important, complexity of the process. Complex processes make it very hard for AI to operate. It is more difficult. The thinking process is different. We did an implementation of a proof of concept with one of the farmers, And we had to look at 7 ERPs, for this process to work. And it was highly complicated, to actually implement that proof of concept. So the process landscape has a big effect. Unrealistic benefits expectations. A lot of organizations initially, a lot of the strategic consultancies came up with these big numbers. And again, we found that some of that was unrealistic. I think that was a big shot that everybody took, but the unrealistic expectations were a big one that organizations are concerned about. Data, of course, I think everybody will talk about data probably today and the importance of it. Data quality concerns will definitely have an impact. And then another one to point out is, the ethical concerns. There's still a lot of concern about that. Is it right? Is it going too far in terms of what the solutions can do today? And again, we'll probably talk about some of these things later in the open session. So what does finance look like in the age of AI? This is a slide we use with a lot of our customers. We believe it's very important to start with what's important from a business point of view. The modern finance function have a very strong connection with the business, and they understand what's needed to either drive growth, cash, value realization, etc. It has a strong focus and capability around insights and analytics. It's got a very big focus around business partnering, driving proactively to increase shareholder value. But also, it's important to think about what can I do with my process design, my core technologies around ERP and EPM, my organizational design, my talent. And we can see from the benchmarks that our top quartile performers are doing much more. They're doing things much faster. They're doing their processes much more standardized. They have a lot more automation and automatic throughput with their processes. So it's important to have a clear vision of what you want to do with your processes and how you want to drive things. And then one more to add on the right is Gen AI. We are going to have more agentic AI workforce embedded in the way we do things in the years to come. We know that. So it's important to understand where does that fit in? How do we govern it? And then how do we manage it going forward to drive continuous improvement? Very important. I forgot about the bottom one. Don't forget about master data management, because a lot of it will depend on that. Governance, policy, and control, important for the finance function. And then my last slide, before I hand back to Owen, it's important to think about your service delivery model. AI is not just about tech, and I want to make sure that's clear. Tech is important. Of course, we need a clear AI vision. We need to have a deeper harmonization of our platforms and the computing and the power that we use around machine learning. But we have to think about our service design. If you've got a GBS function or a shared service center, they were going to have to rethink their service catalog, because a lot of the work they do today will disappear. They're going to have to think a lot about new processes. Like, we have a customer now that's introduced the ideate to deliver process for their AI team. It's now part of their 8 global end-to-end processes in the organization, is the ideate to deliver process. So you're going to see some new processes come through as well. You have to think about end-to-end collaboration and innovation. You can't do this alone in finance. It's important to work together with procurement on the procure-to-pay process. It's important to work with commercial on the order-to-cash process. So a lot of it, you're going to have to go way more end-to-end than what we used to. We have to think about performance management, because how are we going to monitor the agentic AI capability? We've monitored humans in the past very well, but we need to monitor the AI capability as well. So how are we going to monitor the performance around these things? How are we going to drive analytics and data? So that's going to be very important. Data governance, one source of the truth, making sure we have the right mature integration capabilities. This is going to be absolutely critical. We did a proof of concept. I talked about that proof of concept in one of the farmers. Integration was our biggest challenge in that organization, and the lack of maturity around data integration. That is what's going to bite you in the future if you don't get it right. I'll focus on governance quickly. So we need to have, the right governance capability. You need to have a capability in your organization that can tackle AI. If every function and process owner tries to do this by themselves, this is going to be chaotic. So we need to have the right capability in your organization to do this in the right place. We need to have the right portfolio management, because again, imagine if everybody has their own AI projects and you don't manage it as part of a portfolio of work, you are going to start running into trouble how you manage these projects and the realization of the benefits that you're after. Also think about your partners. This is not necessarily AI and what we're talking about. You're going to need some strong partnerships. You're going to need some companies that have done this. Trying to do this by yourself is, again, going to take a lot of time and effort. So you need to have a strong network of partners that you can work with, in the future. And then last but not least, probably the most important thing is, how do we improve our talent? How do we think about our people from a talent perspective? They need to start understanding this. How do we drive the right change management in the organization? Change management is going to be critical with AI, how you bring this in. So that's important. Last but not least, yes, mindset and attitude. Attitude is really important. If you don't have the right attitude and mindset for AI, you're always going to be behind on this. That's one of the key things you want to think about in the future.
Thank you, Helen. Very insightful. Just start to move after just see all you've moved by. Are there any specific questions for Helen in regards to what's been presented? We've got a wide discussion later. Is there any specific questions? Really all? Okay. I think you're free to know. Thank you. Right.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Paolo Valerio. I run the Cloud and Data Engineering practice for EMEA for Hitachi Digital Services. And Owen launched kind of the challenge for me to come and give you an example of what we're doing in the Gen AI field for our clients. So really how we've moved from a hype, a discussion that everybody talks about, into something really with an impact. And you'll see that with a good example. Before I go into that, I want to be clear on a couple of things. I'm not going to discuss about another chatbot to help with the reconciliation. I'm not going to talk about a black box that you're delivering, which you have no idea what it does, so not able to explain it. And I'm not going to talk about a dashboard with smart intelligence behind it to provide you decision making. Okay, that's not the intent, and this is not really what AI is expected to. It's not a tool. It's not a tool necessarily to build automation or to enhance your reporting or to support. We bring it and look at it as a lens to change and transform an organization, a department, or an area. See it like that. AI has to bring to your department a way to transform yourself, to reimagine how you do your workflows or your work, to enable decision-making with real-time insight and real-time decision information right there, and reinvent the way that you look into your process and finance. It's really not about what AI can do, but how do you leverage AI to transform yourself and really reinvent that perspective? Finance has a lot of data, buckets everywhere. We have measures, metrics, KPI, transactions, data from multiple sources. But the key problem here is the trust relationship. People don't trust what AI do. There's always that little kind of idea behind the mind is, does that really model work? Is that really providing? Is that the real output for me to make a decision? So we really tackle this. It's a really important aspect to tackle within is, how do you build that trust? How do you bring that? And we've been working quite a lot in that field within Hitachi. And the example I'll bring to the table really covers these points is, how do you have the framework and the capabilities to explain what AI is doing? So your CFO is able to go and say, listen, I'm using this AI and this is how I'm going to reach it. You're able to audit it from the decision point and all the steps that were done to reach that point. So Herman was mentioning that earlier on. Governance around it, how you govern AI in the organization, how you govern what's being deployed, what's being built, how it's being managed, so on and so forth. We have a series of frameworks and capabilities that are being delivered as part of our offering. We'll hear about this in next sessions or a couple more. R202, which is a framework that we've built for AI modeling in Gen AI, and HARP, our reliability centers on how do we operate, how do we provide observability of what's happening with our models. Where we've been working with our clients a lot in the areas, let it be use cases on finance, with patterns identification, how do we help streamline the decision making? But a really good example I'll bring, which is DS Smith, is all around real-time finance operations. That's a really good example of what we've been doing, and that's where I'm going to spend a bit more time. And by all means, if you have any questions, go for it. So DS Smith, for those who don't know, is one of the largest paper manufacturing companies in the world. They have to process around 1.5 million invoices per year. And they were doing that all manual basis with their existing SAP systems. So whenever an invoice was coming in, they had to validate everything. They had a pretty big workforce to do that. And as part of their transformation, they really wanted to tackle from an operation perspective. So this was the first use case we sat down with them, and I really identified that this can have a real big impact on what you're doing. Going back to Herman's point is, how can you improve your operations smartly? And this is how we looked at it, and how can AI help transform that process? We went through an iterative journey with them. They have initial conversations of what it could be done. They look at it with a technology and ask us, can you do a prototype or a proof of concept using these technology sets? We said, yes, of course, but you should actually be looking at it differently. But we still went ahead with the POC with a specific set of tools. And the thing that came out of it was the POC wasn't successful. We weren't getting the benefits that we were. We were looking at something around 65% of invoices that we were actually able to automate. But even that 65% wasn't clear in terms of the confidence of the data we were able to process. Okay. So this was at the end of 8 weeks. At the end of those 8 weeks, we actually told them, look at this differently. Let's use Gen AI in your process here. We used large language models combined with video analytics. So actually screen capture of the information using LLM to do that. And in about another 3 to 4 weeks, we reinvented the POC. We automatically reached 90% of invoices being automatically processed straight into SAP. So that reduced their time and investment to only having roughly 400 by hand. We reduced that to 90%. So that was the first at the end of the 4 weeks. That basically built the business case and built the foundation for future cases that we started working with that. A couple of more weeks, we improved it to 95%. So not only were we able to automate the process, but also give them the confidence of the information that being extracted, and also facilitate on those exception cases to actually be much more directed to what they needed to fix and actually look into it. This is the old. So on the back of this, once the foundations were done, we expanded the same use cases to other areas of the finance. The first one was rate card compliance. So when they're getting from their suppliers invoices out of rate cards, we're automatically validating that against the contracts they've signed with their suppliers and ensuring that it's matching the right rate card. We've then took the same one for customer remittance. When we're getting information from their customers, they're able to do the line-by-line validation and automatically confirm and get the payments. And the same use case and foundation is also being used for EUDR, which is a sustainability act from the European Union to make sure that what is being produced follows the sustainability conditions or compliance perspective. So the basis that was set forth with DS Smith became then a launch pad for many more use cases with the same. And on the back of that, we're no longer seeing, or DS Smith is no longer seeing this as a project. It's a capability that they're now built within the organization, and in this case, in finance. So this is really important. When you treat about AI, don't treat it as a project. Build it as a capability within, as if you would build finance team itself. Look at the use cases that have high value. Those are the really good candidates to make a point and to drive out of it, and build AI squads. So build that capability that embraces finance people, development people, technology people, and change management as well. How does that mean? How is that going to impact the day-to-day of the team and the employees? And then AI it can be seen as a tech experiment. We come in, we do a POC, it's all nice, it works, and that's it. Look at something that is really going to be strategic as part of your change and transformation process. We're happy to help you out on this. If at the end of the session you want to get more details, by all means, I'm here. I'm here to support and be glad to answer your questions.
Thank you, Baron. Before we move to the next session, is there any immediate questions? Yes, very good.
How was the technology picked? So what LLM, how do you identify what tech to use for these use cases?
There's such a big proliferation of models right now.
Yeah.
We had to try several ones. So that the thing is, you cannot just go with one unless you already have worked with and you know it specifically, but you need to try a couple of them to actually see what outputs is going there. So we had already some ideas of which were the right ones from an LLM based on the recommendation or the tech stack that DS Smith followed. So they are very AWS based clients. So we had to look at what existed from an AWS perspective, try out a couple of those, and eliminate as we were moving for it. As the results were coming in, okay, we're saying there's no worth continuing with this one. Let's do a little bit more on with these two models, see if we're able to improve. And that ended up coming to the selected model in the end. But because models are always constantly evolving, technology is changing so rapidly, new things are coming into place. You need to build it as a modular architecture. So today you're using a model, tomorrow something else is better, even though that you use for something else. Plug and play, take it out, replace it, and everything flows and continues.
Were they able to give you any kind of trial periods at AWS to offset some of the costs of the initial POs?
We've worked very closely with the hyperscaler naturally in this perspective because it's a benefit for them as well because it's users that they're getting. So they're really on board with DS Smith as well to kind of push that within the organization. Because you can see we started with a small area of finance. We're now covering quite a lot more. And not only locally, but we then expanded to the other regions of their business. Okay, so UK, Spain, so localization, language, all of that. So that kind of exploded. You prefer more. You can see that an AWS is really happy when you see consumption happening. So they backed us up all the way through.
Okay, so I'm Winnie Rudgley, and obviously from Oracle. And today I'm going to talk about an overview of AI from Oracle's perspective, and also just give you some of the use cases that we have built within our applications for our users to be able to use, or customers. With everything that you've had here, I'm pleased to say it's kind of what we've also found from the customers we've sort of spoken to. There is obviously concern around AI and its adoption and whether it adds the value or not. So what I'm hoping to do today is just to show you Oracle's approach into developing that for our customers. I put this up just because some of the things I'll talk about will be like on the roadmap, so may not necessarily be there already, but it's how we intend to proceed with AI. So I wanted to show you this, just to bring it down to show when you have a provider that is looking to make sure that we capture everything around AI, that will help the customers to be able to address the issues. For example, my other colleagues have spoken about, or the previous speakers have mentioned, around the security around AI, or the data, the fact that the data is really important. So what we've done, we've captured or built a platform, which is an Oracle AI platform, which brings together all the applications in Fusion, so your ERP and EPM, supply chain, everything, including as well any third-party applications that we know people often have so many different applications they're using. We've put that on one Oracle platform, which manages everything, not just the apps, but also the AI applications. And what we found is that by wrapping it round in one security layer or wrapper, it means that your data or your applications, including third-party ones, are all having the same sort of security as just the AI would have. So in trying to address the concerns around the AI and data, that's how we've tried to address that. So you'll find that Oracle AI is embedded across the whole stack. So within the Fusion apps, as well as the industry apps, including the data that you have, like one of the speakers mentioned that in all enterprises, you have a lot of data, and you do. and you want to have it structured in a way and accessible and controlled such that you're sure it's not going to be compromised in any way. And you also need an infrastructure which can build on it. So with that in mind, that has been the strategy for us with addressing the interest that people have shown around using the new technologies. Because like the comments from the Hackett group, for instance, is that we know people want to use this. They know it's coming. The adoption will be coming. They want to prepare themselves, but maybe they just don't know how best to do it. So quickly, we started off with the AI I'm going to talk about today. Started off with the predictive AI, which we all know has been around for quite some time and was calling upon the data that we had in the systems, the LLMs, and then moved on to Gen AI, which made it, that was the next step. And then there was the Gen AI agents, which now it seems to be all about Gen AI agents and how they're going to come in, they're going to be part of the workforce and everything. And then also next, looking forward, even beyond just the agents, is agents working as together in tandem. So more than one agent coming together and, looking at maybe a complete process, like your procure to pay or whatever else. So in my introduction, I talked about embedded AI. That's what I'm going to talk about mainly. But broadly speaking, there are two types of AI, you can call them. So embedded versus custom AI. Now, from listening to Paolo, I think he was talking mainly about the custom AI. So the one that customers actually build themselves and try and use that either on existing technology or their own if they have the resource to do it internally. So our approach is going to have both embedded AI and custom AI. So the embedded AI is built by Oracle and is accessed via Oracle software, but it comes pre-built with a lot of templates there to help you sort of get up and running quite quickly. So it's embedded not just within your software, as in the apps, but also the workflows that come from that. So as well as any of the layers like the infrastructure. Now, of course, some people want to build their own because this is a new technology. There are many people who have tried to build it or think they would like to build it themselves. We also try to provide enough help for those customers who want to go that route instead. But even if it's built by you, you can still do it on Oracle technology, which means although it's custom AI, it will still enjoy the same sort of security, the same sort of benefits as the embedded AI that we have. So the Oracle AI is integrated within your workflows. So as we all know, having been using applications for a long time or ERPs, whichever ones they are, it tends to work on workflows or the data that you move from one application to another. So the Oracle AI is embedded within your workflow, which means it actually uses your data at the point that you're using it and is contextual to you and what you're doing at the time. So again, obviously data is very important, but also because it's embedded AI, it comes automatically included within your AI applications that you get. And that is actually aids adoption. I know for many people, sometimes they might think, oh, I then have to go and do something separate to get the AI, but because it's part of it, it makes it easier. You could literally, I'll say flick a switch, but obviously maybe it's not that simple, And so just to go back to the initial slide I'd shared, I won't talk about all of those things, but they all apply to Oracle AI. I'll just pick out the one about the data always being secure, for instance. Because it's hosted within OCI, because it's wrapped around the security layers that we have put on, and it uses approved LLMs. I think you were asking about the LLMs that are used. So within the application, we have certain ones that we use that we've checked just to be sure that they meet all the necessary standards so that we can address the issues people have around, is my data safe? Is the LLM going to do the right thing? What's going to happen? So that's it about the or overview of Oracle AI. So for my next bit, I'm going to go into some detail on the sort of Oracle AI specifically that we have within finance applications and for finance teams to use. Because I'm assuming most of us here in the accounting side or finance side, so you don't care about the HCM side. Or maybe you do. But no. But talking about just the finance side, so, and as we've mentioned before, I think one of the slides earlier said there's so many different kinds of AI. So typically within our applications on the finance side, we've got the predictive AI and the generative AI. Predictive came first. So, and it's what has been using the large language models, looking at detecting patterns within that data, and then maybe identifying any anomalies, and then suggesting, guidance to you on how you can either make a decision because it picks out all the patterns within your data. For generative AI, exactly as it says on the tin, it generates something for you. So it uses your data, you ask a question, it goes away, does something, and then it will create a new report for you, or it will perform an action for you. That's broadly speaking, the difference between the two. We've got both within Oracle applications. The idea behind the AI, and again, I was pleased to hear about the studies that have been done, is it confirms what we have kind of looked at, which is to say we want AI to be able to support touchless operations. So automate your operations, your P2P, your order to cash, all those operations that take a very long time, especially when you're really heavy on transactions. It's useful to be able to automate your processes. And then the predictive insights. Many times when I was working in finance, for instance, I know we used to struggle to get information out of the systems. You had to spend, I was working, I can't remember, Oxford, the university where I was working was, and I was tasked with writing reports, literally writing the reports that the finance teams were using. And that would take a long time to prepare. So you can imagine working in finance, you're sat there, your boss, your CFO has asked you for one number, and then you go to IT to spend time to figure out what's the document going to include, what can I give them? So it takes a long time. With AI, a lot of those things can be simplified and are simplified. It also allows connected actions. We know, and like we've said, finance is no longer just looking at finance. Finance has got a new mandate. It has to look broadly across the whole organization. So collaboration, I know I said I don't care about HCM. Well, I lied about that because actually I'm an employee, so I care about HCM. So, but it's important to have those connected teams and make it easy to work with them. Your HCM colleagues, quite often, if you need to get a number from them about an FTE and so on and so forth, it can take forever. But when it's all connected, it makes it a lot easier. And that's the view that we took in creating some of the AI capabilities that we have. So as you can see, we're covering off insights because insight is the key thing. With finance and planning, or just finance in general, you want to have the data. You want to be able to talk about your data and explain it to your managers. So with IPM Insights, you're able to do that. You don't have to spend the time in spreadsheets running so many different versions of it just to figure out where the variance is or what is causing or what even to explain that variance. Then when you have like narrative reporting shouldn't take long. But for many organizations, it still does, simply because by the time you've run the numbers and then the accounting team has gone through them, try to understand those numbers and then make the narrative that goes with it, the document or the data has changed. So it becomes a continuous process of doing that. Also, journal entry or reconciliation notes. Because of some applications we have, so like your cash management, or if you have to do any balance sheet reconciliations, we all know those take a long time. It was one of the tasks that we used to give to the juniors who had just joined. You send them to go and do a whole lot of balance sheet reconciliations because they take a long time. But with something like this, it can be done very quickly. So your processes are improved. So this tells you a little bit more about the IPM Insights capability. This is actually an AI. What it does, looks at historical data, analyzes it because it looks for patterns. So that's what it goes and does, and then detects any anomalies, and is then able to tell you if there's anything that is out of, doesn't make sense or is actually wrong. Hopefully I can just play a small video so you can see it rather than me talking all the time.
Quickly see unusual patterns, such as a spike in product sales. No need to run and manually analyze multiple reports. Machine-generated predictions can perform a reality check on forecasts and tell you if they're on track. It looks like the forecast missed the predicted demand trend. Easily collaborate with operations to confirm and override forecasts with new insights gained from predictions. Never miss an insight. Spend less time analyzing and more time taking action with Oracle.
That was just briefly showing you what can happen when you run that AI. It will literally just present you with the exceptions. So I know we're a little bit short of time.
That's okay.
So I will, the other big area within finance is around the reporting. So you have narrative reporting, which you kind of mentioned a little bit. And then you have maybe narrative reporting still, but trying to find a comparison between periods. There's quite a standard report and should be very quick to get, but sometimes people struggle to get that. And then, of course, the reporting that you want to do your variance analysis. Now, all of this, what it actually means is somebody or a team of people has sat down in an office, running off a whole range of spreadsheets, analyzing those numbers, coming up with this, preparing the pack. And this is within a time period because it's always deadlines. You've got to finish this by a certain point. And it can be quite stressful to the people. It takes a lot of time. It can have errors. But when you have AI helping you out, if it's been set up correctly, because it's referencing your transactional data and it's looking at it in real time, it's able to pick up any of the anomalies in there and help you prepare that report. But crucially, it still has the ability to stop, or you can stop it. So as a human can then have a look and just confirm those numbers. I'll play another video.
In this part of the demo, we'll see how Oracle GenAI helps FP&A Director David stay ahead in preparing for their quarterly business review narrative report. When David comes into work, he gets a few alerts and business insights from GenAI. One of them relates to accrual accounting entries from the ledger agent. In the narrative reporting app, GenAI has already prepared a draft of the QBR report using last quarter's template with Q2 data and details filled in. David browses through the GenAI draft of the QBR. It looks good with tight narrative text and the right visuals to tell the story. With that said, one of the insights points to shipment delays at the Berlin plant. David's management will want to know more about this operational issue, so he adds another section to the report. He adds the insight as a context for the news section. He tells Oracle GenAI to add a chart because a picture is worth 1,000 words. AI has generated both narrative and imagery. David is happy with the text, but he wants a different visual as the bar chart looks a little boring. GenAI offers some good choices. David goes with the bubble chart as it shows both shipment delays and associated dollar values. This new visual is much better. You can clearly see that the Berlin plant has a problem. There's lots of red in the last few weeks, with high-value orders getting backed up. David is happy with the new section in the report.
I'll just talk about the ledger agent rather than showing you the video perhaps, but the ledger agent works in a similar way to the narrative reporting one. It's not the same thing and it's doing a different task, but as part of your month end normally, when you look through the balances and you think there's a difference, you need to book a journal. typically, you will send an email to, I don't know, somebody who does the entering of journals and say to them, there's a difference here, I need to book that journal. And you have to explain to them what should be in the journal. You give them the credits and debits for it all, make sure it balances. And then they'll go and check and see, is it working? Is it correct? And everything. They'll send back the email to you. So but you get the picture of how it works. So with the ledger agent, once you've identified those differences, the ledger agent can help you in going to actually create the journal based on the differences that it will have identified. It will send you that template and say, these are the differences I've identified based on the line. It will actually show you the line where to pick it up from. It can even attach maybe the detail of the actual transactions that were causing it or were missing and suggest a coding. And then if you're happy with it, you can approve it and it gets posted. It will do it for you as well. So, but that's the sort of thing when you have the agents within a system, how they can help you with automating the tasks that would otherwise take a whole team of people a very long time to do.
Jenna.
Oh, I'll just skip over that one. So I talked initially on the first half, I talked mainly about FP&A and the sort of processes that you have within FP&A, so reporting ones or predictive insights. So on the transaction side as well, and I think this is one of the things that were mentioned as areas where you can have an improvement. When you have a company where they have a lot of transactions that have got to be pushed through the system, it can take a long time. I've been there, I've done that job, I've been that person who was sat there having been allocated a section of a ledger to address for suppliers. And this was a long time ago, it's not recent. So, and then you spend a long time just trying to process those invoices and, you know, and satisfy not just your manager, but the suppliers as well, so they get paid in time. So a lot of the things, for example, dynamic discounting or intelligent invoice to PO line matching. Some of you who've had your ERP for a while probably recognize that as standard. It's just that now it uses AI. It's much better, it's more improved, it's much slicker because it looks through all the historical transactions of that supplier and all the ones you've done. So it knows, it will suggest the best match, which is probably, you know, the right match. And a lot of these ones, for example, like the intelligent document recognition, again, that's quite a key one for improving process within AP because it builds on what used to be like a scanning process before. I think many of you will recognize that. Some companies used to have a separate section where they did the scanning. They would post all the invoices to that location. Imagine that. If there was a post office strike, you didn't get the invoices. But anyway, so it had all sorts of issues. Now with suppliers sending invoices by email, you can capture them very easily, which means when you come to use your IDR, it works a lot better because it can read any document in any format that you've submitted it. Most people nowadays have emails, they can submit that, and it will do it for you quite easily. One of our customers, I think they did a similar thing to, I think Paolo was talking about it at DS Smith, where they struggled to have that working correctly. One of the customers we had was using IDR or tried to use IDR. But before they used IDR, they were struggling a lot in processing those invoices. He then came and gave us a presentation after he tried IDR, for example, and they, obviously not in a very short period of time, but within like a few weeks, they were able to bring the matching and the invoices being prepared by just using IDR to a very high percentage, and I think it was 95%. Which made me smile when I saw the document that Paolo put up, because I think he also mentioned 95%. But they were so, and this was the government, I think it was the land registry. They were actually so pleased with it that he was so happy to talk about it and come and present to people because it made such a difference for that particular team. given all the issues people sometimes have, working in government and the restrictions they have on resources. So I'm not going to go into details of those ones, but the key message is that with AI, you can improve a lot of the processes that you have within accounting or finance teams, because not only do you automate the processes, you have the data you need to make decisions, and it means people are much, better utilized, if you like. I think, yeah. This is one of the things I know people, sometimes you don't think about it, but it's maybe because it was limited because of how ERP systems were. When you have a lot of suppliers, what used to happen is I suppose the procurement team would negotiate deals with, say, certain suppliers and agree that if we can pay them early, would get certain discounts. But because it was such a big job and you had to negotiate, it would only do it with a handful or a few suppliers. And then it was fixed as well, in the sense that you had a period in which you had to do it and then you got the discount. So now with AI, you have the option or the ability, if you like, to be able to organize it such that you can do it across all suppliers, across the whole payment period. So it's not just for a handful of suppliers. So it means that there's quite a lot of benefit you can get when you do it using the early payment discount in conjunction, say, with the dynamic discounting. The two work together. We call it dynamic discounting because it's trying to emphasize or illustrate the fact that you can do it across many suppliers over the whole payment period, which means the savings are much more, not just for you as the company, but the supplier is much happier. They get their money a lot earlier. And of course, your working capital is better managed or better controlled because of it. So again, I might show you this one simply because I'll flick through it. Okay. So I've talked about intelligent accounts combination defaulting. And I'll flick through that one as well. And finally, I'll just talk about the document IO agent, because this one is one of the next generation type agents that are coming, which can help a lot with your processing. Because as it says there, it will just process all transactions in a variety of documents that you send. So it looks at streamlining the procure to pay process. And it means that whatever you send to AP in whatever format, they're able to process them using this.
This demo shows how AI agents in Oracle Cloud ERP will help drive secure touchless operations of procure-to-pay processes. It starts with James, a sales VP in Japan, who urgently needs to purchase video production services. He takes a picture of the vendor's handwritten quote and emails it to the Document IO AI agent. Because the agent understands the business context and works with an industry-leading LLM to extract the relevant information from the attachment and email, Document IO can take the next step and create a purchase requisition. The buyer receives a notification to review the requisition. He sees the original descriptions in Japanese as well as the English translation. Document IO also generates charge account codes based on project information and related details from the email. For the subaccount, the agent has insufficient confidence in the value predicted by AI and requests confirmation. The buyer verifies that the subaccount is correct and submits the requisition. Video production goes well. James confirms receipt of services and the supplier sends an invoice, which triggers a workflow in accounts payable. In the Payables Manager screen, we see the Document IO agent automatically processes invoices in a variety of file and document formats. The invoice from the video production company is ready for payment, so the payment manager initiates payment via virtual credit card. She reviews the remittance advice that Document IO created based on details in the invoice and then submits it for payment. The virtual credit card details will be automatically issued to the supplier. And that's it. Starting with just a document photo, the Document I/O agent will help enable a secure and highly automated procure-to-pay process. This is just one of the ways we're embedding AI agents in Oracle Cloud ERP to drive touchless operations.
Right. So I'm going to stop there.
The great thing about Oracle is there's so much embedded AI that it was very difficult for Willie to do in such a short space of time. So did you run a toast? I just wanted to make it. Please do. Yeah.
Do you want this?
Have I got to go? So I'm a colleague of Willie's, and I've sort of worked leading finance teams most of my career until a couple of years ago when I joined Oracle. So Winnie was asked to sort of share some use cases, basically like double clicking on some of the issues that Paolo and Herman raised earlier to sort of bring it to life a bit from us in finance, our process perspective. I just wanted to tie it together really and just levitate it massively back up. So when all these things are put together, you can start generating massive gains for the organization. So one thing, it's nothing to do with me, it was with the finance teams within Oracle. We issue quarterly, to Herman's point, audited accounts with all the New York Stock Exchange filings on plus or minus 1 day from 10 calendar days after the end of the quarter. So we issued our filings to the New York Stock Exchange on the 9th calendar day after the end of the quarter. At year end, we did it on 11 just because of the weekend. So our chief accounting officer, who is based in Ireland and runs the team for the global operation out of Ireland, her goal for the next phase of the reimagining finance, so we use some of the language that Hitachi used for reimagining the month end, her next goal for the organization is to get to a 1-day audited close with filings to the New York Stock Exchange. As for a manufacturing operation, licensing, software, professional services in almost every country on the planet. So doing that is only achieved by all of the AI work that Winnie's just talked about, because we just use the same products that we sell to customers. There's no magic version behind the curtain. It's the same, and that's the game. So I just wanted to levitate it massively up, and that's how you get to the fastest in the close in the S&P 500. So, using our own products, but ruthlessly adopting, which we haven't talked about, adoption versus the bane of my life for 30 years, which was customization. Thank you. I just wanted to bring it.
Thank you.
And I think there's been, it's a great examples from Willie on how actually buying a modern solution like Oracle that packages this together can overcome some of those barriers and challenges that you mentioned earlier. And I mean, within Hitachi, we work with a lot of different technology vendors. I know we've got Herman here. I'm going to put it on the spot, but Herman and I had spoken about this before, and I think we can confidently say Oracle is way ahead of its competition in terms of its AI offering, both in the way it's structured, the way it's embedded, it's part of your license fee, and just in terms of the number of features that are now being pushed into the system, it is really leading the curve here. And I think you'd agree with me there, Herman, from the conversations we've had. You're not on camera over there, so you could.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as an organization, we are partners with SAP, Oracle, and Microsoft as well. In Europe, we're agnostic. We don't do SI work. We stay agnostic. We facilitate a lot of the RFPs out there in the market. But so we observe what Oracle does. We observe what Microsoft does. And I can say in the finance side, the embedded capability you see here, you're not going to see anywhere else in this level of detail in every single process. So I think that's something that we've also observed. It's one of the advantages, and using that cloud platform is incredibly powerful.